But return, we came by car to Pune airport and then boarded the flight.
Okay, yeah. Karthik was there, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Avtar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Ashok ji, why don't you start with my wish?
Yes. Uh, Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. My wish. The lover has to keep the wish of the beloved. My wish for my lovers is as follows. Do not shirk your responsibilities. Attend faithfully to your worldly duties, but keep always at the back of your mind that all this is Baba's. When you feel happy, think Baba wants me to be happy. When you suffer, think Baba wants me to suffer. Be resigned to every situation and think honestly and sincerely. Baba has placed me in this situation. With the understanding that Baba is in everyone, try to help and serve others. I say with my divine authority to each and all that whosoever takes my name at the time of breathing his last comes to me. So do not forget to remember me in your last moments. Unless you start remembering me from now on, it will be difficult to remember me when your end approaches. You should start practicing from now on. Even if you take my name only once every day, you will not forget to remember me in your dying moments. Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. Over to you and thank you, Karthik.
Thank you, Ashok ji. So, let's get back to manifesting after a brief hiatus of actually not very brief, it's 2 weeks. Um, so, last reading that we did before Silence Day, we actually read about this episode of the jewel, the stone which was not recognized by the disciple, and the, the perfect master skillfully gives him a very good lesson. Right? So that's what we read in the last episode, and that was titled second, Love Cannot Bear the Weight of the Intellect. So now we get on to that's basically a lesson in obedience, and the limited scope of intellect. So we should not. So the rock represented, you know, a lot of value, but the right person knew that value, and through the disciples' obedience, he discovers that value by repeated uh, attempts at price discovery with multiple people. So that's what happens. Okay, so let's get to the next part. It's called the sound of the original question. Let's get started on that. R. Meher Baba Ki Jai. The sound of the original question. God, in his original state of the beyond beyond, is in a state of infinite silence. This original word, which is the original question, who am I, has an infinite sound. But this sound is the sound of silence. So it is soundless sound. I repeat, the original word, which is the original question, who am I, has an infinite sound. But the sound is the sound of silence. So it is soundless sound. God, in his original state, is everything, big E. But in his original state, God, the everything, big E, does not know that he is big E everything. Big E everything becomes known through the original question, who am I, through its infinite sound. This infinite sound is beyond gross, subtle, and mental sound. The sound of the gross, subtle, and mental worlds are the seven shadows of the original infinite sound. The total sound of these seven shadows creates a most finite sound, and within the sound of these seven shadows, there are an infinite number of sounds. I repeat. there's a finite in between. So I repeat, the total sound of these seven shadows creates a most finite sound. So there are seven shadows of the sound, and the total of that is a finite sound. And within the sound of these seven shadows, there are an infinite number of sounds. So again, there's an infinite gradation of sounds in those seven shadows, between those seven shadows. I continue. The original word is an infinite sound, and because it is infinite, this word is the sound of all sound. This sound of the word is of infinite silence, an infinite soundless sound. To have an idea of the soundless sound, simply observe your own thinking mind. The nature and function of the mind is to think. Mind is that state of thinking. The mind thinks, and in the state of thinking, there exists no sound. As soon as the thoughts are transferred into desires and desires are transferred into words, one hears the sound of his thoughts on the gross level. The motive force, however, behind the words is thinking, thought itself, which has no sound. The original question, who am I, is the original thought, but when transferred into the states of mental, subtle, and gross creation, it becomes the original word. But this original word, because it has attained its answer, eternally remains the infinite thought, and this infinite thought is without sound. Yet, because of its essence, infinite thought itself, this original word thought causes an infinite sound. And this one infinite sound, in turn, causes an infinite number of sounds. But eternally, this infinite sound is of soundless sound because it remains infinite thought. Whoa, it's quite a bit there to unpack. So let's try to see what we and what I understand from it, and then we can discuss also. So there is a soundless sound. It is infinite. It has its shadows cast seven times over gross, subtle, and mental. It is compared to thought, which initially does not come with sound, but then after it comes into action and expresses itself as a deed. The word, the thought becomes a word and a deed. That's where the sound is introduced. But because the nature of this sound is so infinite, it is in this state of soundless sound, right? So that's what I got. Any comments? Any reactions or questions?
Jay Baba, I have one question. So whether the sound of Om can be relate to this, or I mean, and this whole text is rather intriguing. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
it's very
very.
dense, no doubt.
Now, one primary question here is, hey, the different aspects of the spiritual hierarchy is mentioned here in the form of awakening sound and this sound being soundless and all that. But the what we thought all these days, or what I thought all these days, say, who am I is the question, and the answer is I am God. Okay, that question, we thought that is the end of the whole search here. But this who am I remains as it is, soundless sound, in as
Uh,
what we read now.
yes, I think the uh, my understanding of what you just described is it is a continuous process, right?
Yeah.
So the Om point is continuously emanating bubbles, and hence the question is infinite. And the
Yes.
answer is also potentially infinite, but it's being answered in each drop soul's time, right? So there is a drop soul at the Om point. It's going through the process. And once the conscious awareness of God is reached, it is able to answer the original question. But then, even at that point in time, there are other drop souls which have not yet reached there. And
yes,
there are new drop souls that are experiencing that question. So the question is kind of, in that sense, infinite.
infinite.
And it's infinite and ever present, let's say. Ever present, ever emanating, ever there. And then there are answers also coming. The answers are few and far because of the ratios that we know in the cosmos, right?
Yes,
So fewer people
yes.
answer, but more people question all the time.
Question all the time and don't get the answer even. And
Yes,
okay,
yes.
uh,
Yeah. But
Karthik,
use of words. Yeah.
can we read that paragraph again? It's
Yeah, it's pretty dense. So I'm beyond a point. I don't think we can decipher. I think broader concepts of infinity of the question and the fact that it's soundless, but yet it is sound. I think that's all we need to take away for now. But I'll read again. Surely we can read again. Yeah. To have an idea of the soundless sound, simply observe your thinking mind. The nature and function of the mind is to think. Mind is that state of thinking. The mind thinks, and in the state of thinking, there exists no sound. As soon as the thoughts are transferred into desires and desires are transferred into words, one hears the sound of his thoughts on the gross level. The motive force, however, behind the words is thinking, thought itself, which has no sound. The original question, who am I, is the original thought. But when transferred into the states of mental, subtle, and gross creation, it becomes the original word. But this original word, because it has attained its answer, eternally remains the infinite thought, and this infinite thought is without sound. Yet, because of its essence, infinite thought itself, this original word, thought, causes an infinite sound. And this one infinite sound, in turn, causes an infinite number of sounds. But eternally, this infinite sound is of soundless sound because it remains infinite thought. So, at a very gross, I mean, a very coarse analogy, when you think of something and till such time that you express it in words, very practically, even in gross terms, there is no sound. The sound comes only after you express it verbally. But the thought is always there, right? So the thought is of a question and of sound, and it's infinite, but it finds expression through the three worlds, as and through so many drop souls, and it gets the sound only when it finds expression, is what I can restate. But again, I may be right, I may be wrong. Okay, let's continue and see if we get a better grip. When thinking stops in the state of nirvana, when the limited mind is annihilated, Manonash, the original word is heard as the answer to the original infinite thought. The state of infinite thought, which creates the process of infinite thinking, has no sound and it can never be heard even on the fifth mental plane, which is where the very process of infinite thinking becomes fully active. Thought and thinking is the state of mental consciousness in the fifth plane, but this thought and thinking, though it is pure, is still in the state of sound. That mental sound, though it is called the word of God, is not the soundless sound of the original word of God in the beyond state. Original question is the motive force behind everything in mental, subtle, and gross creation. And because of the soundless sound of that question, the infinite thought, everything has sound. Every shadow thinks and finds itself in the process of infinite thinking. So that's now linked to the divine journey. So as you go through the planes, you reach the fifth plane, and in the fifth plane, the faculty of thinking is at peak. Bhau points out it's peak but not infinite, right? So if you see the line there, thought and thinking is the state of mental consciousness in the fifth plane. But this thought and thinking in the fifth plane, though it is pure, is still in the state of sound. So it's still verbalized and not infinite and hence not soundless. So it's not yet the answer, it's not yet the end of the question and hence the answer to the question and hence the process completing, which is God realization being reached. The second idea that is presented here is the state of nirvana, which is thinking stopping, and the original word is heard as the answer. Now, I'm not clear if the original word is still who am I, or is it the answer to the question who am I, right? So, because he does not use the answer anywhere here, it's only question and original word. Correct?
Yes, he has not clarified what is the original word as such.
But the idea of the original word is actually the capitalized original word is a biblical reference.
Yes,
I think in Bible it says, in the beginning there was the word. I think something like that. New Testament, right? So that links very closely to Om point. That links very closely to creation coming from sound. But if you step back, zoom out, and look at this, I think it's just we are good to understand that sound, primordial sound, infinite sound, was the first thing that triggers everything,
yes.
and
And
uh,
that sound
sound
may
is
also
actually
be soundless
soundless.
sound.
It's infinite and it's actually soundless. Okay,
So,
if
Jay
yeah,
Baba,
Yeah.
the intriguing question is, what is the original word?
yeah, what is the original word is not clear in this chapter. Yes,
Yeah,
but
what
I would say, yeah, Bhushan, go ahead.
yeah, what I understood in this, no, like who am I? Like what I perceive it, like there are two dimension. As long as who am I? It's in reality dimension. It is just a thought, but that thought, when converted into word, it has to come to another dimension called illusion, which is compromise of gross, subtle, and mental. What it is written here. So, who am I is a original word, but it will exist only if it comes to gross, subtle, and mental. But if it is in reality, it is a original thought. So, this thought, what next paragraph says, now it is the precursor to take that soul or drop soul to complete his journey. And then again, when it comes to subtle word, I think then it was explaining, though now it has almost reached to reality, but still it is not called as an infinite sound because still it is the dimension of illusion. So moment it will merge consciously, I think that same who am I, which is now consciously answered, that thought and word become a complete infinite soundless state when it that soul become a god. So that is what I pursue from this.
Super summary,
Yes, yes. Good summary. Mm.
very good summary, perfect. I think you covered all the aspects and perfectly. I mean, that's what I think all of us are taking away.
Yes,
Right? Yeah, great. Thanks, Bhushan. Let's continue. The next part is called the silence of God. So, by the way, I don't know if you would remember, I bring that up and then we'll read it. Maybe after this chapter, there was I think it was DeepSeek, one of the, or ChatGPT, whatever. Sunil did a AI on, I mean, did a interaction on the silence of Meher Baba and possible reasons for it. Of course, some of them are very mundane, but one of them touched me very much, and I want to bring that up maybe at the end of this because that's related to silence, also Silence Day, and so on. So maybe we'll read that together after this part, right?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. The silence of God. The original state of God in the beyond beyond is silence. Silence in the original formlessness of God has no sound, but in the beyond state of God, silence has a soundless sound because of the original thought or question, who am I? This soundless sound of God's silence is the motive force to answer that question. And this motive force is infinite. That infinite force produces all of mental, subtle, and gross creation. So, this is a good extension or continuation to what we learned in the previous chapter. Now, he's going into God in the beyond, beyond, and God in the beyond. So, God in the beyond, beyond is silence. God in the beyond, beyond state has a soundless sound, right? And because of that original thought, this soundless sound acts as uh, the state, the motive force. It acts as the motive force for all of creation. That makes sense, right? So, yeah, you were saying something, Ashok?
No, no. It's, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
First time when you explained it, you said it. Second stage also beyond beyond. I thought of correcting that, but my microphone was muted.
Oh,
So
okay.
okay,
Yeah, first one is beyond beyond silence.
yeah,
The second one is where the soundless sound makes its appearance as the original thought or question, and then that acts as the motive force for all of the creation in the three words. Let's continue. Sound has come out of the silence of God in the beyond beyond. Silence is the eternal motive force of this sound. The infinite question that arose in the beginning was an infinite thought. Therefore, sound becomes soundless in the state of nirvana, and silence is achieved in the state of nirvikalpa. This infinite thought of God is God's thought, I am God, in the state of nirvikalpa. Thus, silence is achieved because the infinite mind thinks the infinite thought. I think this answers all the gray questions that we had from in the previous part. So first, sound becomes soundless in the state of nirvana. Okay, sound becomes soundless, and silence is achieved in the state of nirvikalpa. So there's a subtle difference. There is a soundlessness as distinguished from silence. Silence is infinite mind thinking the infinite thought. And that infinite thought is I am God. So it's not the original word. The original word is who am I? The infinite mind thinks the infinite thought in Nirvikal, which is silence, which is nothing but I am God. So it's the end of the journey, right? Let's continue. Sound is infinite and is of three types, and each type has an infinite difference in nature. The sound of thoughts and feelings is the highest sound in creation because it is of pure mind, man. The sound of prana is the most powerful sound in creation because it is of infinite energy. The sound of the universe is the most finite sound, but it contains an infinite number of sounds because it contains the sounds of every being in the universe. Thus, there exists an infinite difference in sound between the three worlds. So, if you go back, the sound of thoughts and feelings is highest sound in creation. The sound of prana is the most powerful sound in creation because it's of infinite energy, subtle mind. So first one is mental world, second one is subtle world, and the sound of the universe is the most finite in the gross world, but it contains an infinite number of sounds. And I think we can relate to that. Each sound in the gross world is finite, but there are infinite number of sounds, types of sounds, because it contains the sounds of every being in the universe. Okay. The other two, one adjective is is highest sound for mental, okay? Most powerful for subtle, right? So we can also, okay,
That prana. Okay, okay.
yeah, yeah,
It's prana you are marked. Okay.
yeah. And I think if that's the logic, they should also do this. So in the gross world, I mean, in the mental world, it's thoughts and feelings. It's the highest sound in creation. And of course, it's operating at the level of the mind. Then in the subtle world, it is prana and it's infinite energy. And it is also the most powerful sound. Let's continue. In the beyond state of God exists the infinite everything and the infinite nothing. The sound of the everything is soundless sound. We learned that in the first para. The sound of the everything, I repeat, is soundless sound, for it is the sound of the original thought or the sound of silence. The sound of the nothing is sounding sound, for it is the resounding of the sound of the original question or the resounding shadow of the original sound. Sound has come out of the big nothing, not out of the big everything. But this sound of the big nothing does not have the motive force of the big everything, for sound cannot be produced by the big nothing. So, what is this sound the human being hears? It is the sound of big nothing. The sound is nothing because not one of the sounds of this sound of big nothing leads one to know the motivating force of all creation. So the motivating force of all creation is soundless and it is coming out of the big everything. Whatever we hear in the big nothing is actually does not come with motive force. Only when it has motive force, it pushes itself to expression, and that's the sound we hear in the rest of the creative universe. Is that what we understand from this?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, Karthik, Jay Baba,
Yeah.
if I can add, is are they trying to differentiate between reality and duality? Because when they say that the sound cannot be produced by the nothing, and then they say that what you hear, I mean, uh, shadow of the original sound that has not out of come out of nothing, and not out of everything. But the sound of the nothing does not have the motive force of the everything. So, I mean, here when they say nothing and everything, uh, are they trying to say the two worlds of duality and in reality? Is a thought which came to my mind. It's open for discussion or at least interpretation.
Oh, you're absolutely right, right? So it's just that it's a shadow, our famous page
Yeah, yeah.
30,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So
Correct.
it's just a shadow. And so even in the sound, the motive force is soundless. But when it finds expression, it's a shadow sound, but it's actually not important. I mean, not real. So you're right.
Yeah.
You're absolutely
So,
right.
so I'm on the right path. Thank you. Because I
Yeah.
was just
Yeah.
thinking how to decipher.
Everything is coming out. Yeah.
Yes.
Things what's in the
Yeah. Yeah.
original. Yeah. Correct. The original
Perfect.
real nothing is, but it's just sound. Yeah. Let's go back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure. Oh, nothing. We finished this para. Okay. When the avatar descends into creation, the big everything is everything to him, and the big nothing is nothing to him. The creation of the big nothing is at his command, and so is the resounding sound of the big nothing. Through his infinite mind, he consciously uses the creation of the big nothing for his work. And though he speaks, he is ever silent because he has the infinite thought within his infinite mind. So, though he speaks refers to the avatar between the stone hitting Baba from Upasni Maharaj to 1925, okay, and all other avatars. Because the rest of the time, uh, Baba did speak, right? So when he says the avatar speaks, but all the time, even when he's speaking, he's actually silent. And Baba took it to the next level by remaining silent for most of his advent. Continuing, Meher Baba spoke his word through his universal work. And when his universal work was completed and he dropped his physical body, his silence began to break. That word, big W, is the sound of his work, and the results of his work become known or heard during his manifestation. He completed his work, but gives the big W word of his work to the world during his manifestation, because this is the period when the results of his work manifest on earth. His work was essentially to remove the samskaric obstacles in the mind to hear the original word, and this word is transferred down through 7 levels of human consciousness and 7 levels of evolutionary consciousness. On the seventh level of human consciousness, the gross world, the word becomes his name. Okay. The ultimate purpose of human consciousness is to hear the word, but that word is not heard until the sound of gross, subtle, and mental creation disappears. The annihilation of sanskaras produces the annihilation of sound, and only when the annihilation of all sound is achieved in the state of nirvana is the word really heard as it is, in silence. That infinite word, which is an infinite thought, can only be heard in a state of infinite silence. Nirvan is that vacuum in which all sound disappears. And Nirvikalp is that divine state in which the infinite mind thinks the infinite thought, I am God, in infinite seconds. Okay.
J-Bob, uh,
Yeah.
so this seven shadows can be equated to the seven planes, is what I think.
Yes.
J-Bob.
Uh, Yes, I don't think it was 7 shadows, right? 7 levels. Yeah, it was 7 levels. So it's basically the 7 levels of human consciousness, rightly comparable to the 7 planes. And 7 levels of evolutionary consciousness is the 7 kingdoms. So rather than shadows, it's levels.
Okay, it's okay. The levels.
Yeah,
I,
levels.
it's bad. And it says in the last line, if you can just read the last line in the seventh, uh,
On the seventh level of
on the
human
seventh.
consciousness, yeah, on the seventh level of human consciousness, the gross world, the word becomes his name. Now, again, he has not expounded on this uh, in the subsequent paragraph. Let's see what happens later. But that's very intriguing. So, what does he mean by saying the word becomes his name?
Yeah,
Let's continue.
it is intriguing. Agreed, agreed.
Yeah. The avatar's universal work is to redirect the sound of evolution toward hearing that word, which is of soundless sound. His work of sanskaric annihilation removes the undesirable sound from every level of evolution, and particularly those undesirable sounds encumbering human consciousness caused by unnatural sanskaras. In human consciousness, undesirable sound has become enormous. And this undesirable sound, caused by the abundance of accumulated unnatural sanskaras in the world, has become an immense obstacle, preventing a natural progress towards involution for humanity as a whole. The undesirable sound in the gross world consists of all the unnatural thoughts, unnatural desires, unnatural actions, and unnatural attitudes toward God. These are the obstacles to human consciousness in its progress toward involution. I take a pause here. Uh, I think we understand the idea of unnatural sound, but I have a technical point here, which has been troubling me from the beginning of this book. I think it's a error of editing, but please throw your light and your comments as well. I have never seen the word towards spelt as towards, though it should be appearing as towards in this book. Everywhere it is toward, right?
Yes.
So it's very confusing. And right through all the chapters, it's always toward, right? So many times I wrongly read it out as towards because that's how the meaning seems to make sense. But here it's always in its singular. I think we have to understand if it's intentional or accidental or erroneous. Anyway, that's my semantic comment.
Yeah,
Lesser
but I
comment.
think American English it is acceptable. Only Britisher goes for S. That is what my
Is it?
understanding. Yeah,
Then maybe
American
it's an
means
American edit.
Yeah.
So it's
Possible.
an American edit. I was not aware of that distinction that Americans use toward, but probably are very right because I have seen that usage more often with the Americans.
yeah,
So
but you still
towards,
cross-verify. That is what my thought is.
yeah, well, I think that's a good point. Let's verify that. If that's true, then it's just the American style of usage. Then I'm very relieved
Otherwise,
because otherwise this was bothering me.
bothering. And your
Yeah.
bothering has put me into thinking that
Uh-huh.
towards, if it is a plural one,
Hmm.
it is many. The word is
Correct.
singular,
Singular.
then it is towards unitary, single.
Uh, mm.
So that's also in the same flow of thought. God is one. There is nothing multiple there.
Yeah. So maybe that's why this is better. So using toward going forward because I otherwise use a lot of Americanisms in my speaking because it's simpler and more practical, even spells. But I have never clicked on this one. I should research and then move to toward. Move toward. Use of toward instead of towards. Okay, let's go. The avatar works to remove these sanskaric. Before I continue, any comments on uh, unnatural sanskaras and unnatural sounds. I mean, undesirable sounds and unnatural sanskaras. So, uh, Baba's work is to remove the undesirable sounds which are caused by unnatural sanskaras. Right. So, any comments or thoughts on that before we continue? No is
remove
good.
all
So,
these sounds and reach a state of soundless
silence.
sound.
Yeah.
Yes.
First, nirvana, where there is no sound, and then a soundless sound, which is infinite in nirvikalpa. Okay. The avatar works to remove these sanskaric obstacles. He achieves his work by absorbing the sound of the gross world into his very body. Once the sound is absorbed, it becomes soundless. And this absorption by his body is his act of annihilating gross sanskara. Once human consciousness achieves a state of balance between sound and silence, it is prepared to hear that word which comes out of his silence. That word affects the sound of every thinking mind that hears it, because that word annihilates the sound of sanskaras. That word is of soundless sound. The soundlessness of the sound of his word absorbs all sounds. I repeat, that word is of soundless sound. The soundlessness of the sound of his word absorbs all sounds. Thus, human sanskaras become annihilated in degrees by the force of the avatar's soundless word. His work prepares each human being to hear the ultimate sound of that original word. When the human mind is totally free from all sanskaras in the state of nirvana, then it will hear the infinite silence in the state of nirvikalp, of the infinite thought of God.
Jay Baba,
Okay.
I
Yeah.
have a thought. So basically,
Yes, sir.
this this maintaining silence is sort of a preparation or a precondition to reach nirvana, and that is also that is what explains the 44 years of silence of Baba during his universal work. Is what comes to my mind. I mean, open for.
Uh, that's coming to your mind, but that's not a direct inference from what we read. Okay, that your analysis is correct, but it's not coming straight from what we read till now. Um, yeah, but quite possible. Uh, to push us towards that is what Baba is doing. But there remains a question that I'm sure some of us have got, where we wonder why this Advent Baba chose silence, right? And so there, I have this little thing I want to read out. Or
Maybe when we read further ahead, it might get more clarified. I don't know.
okay, so maybe we will read the next chapter too, because it is also silence, and then take up uh, that exploration through AI. Yeah. The next part is eternal silence. The state of God in the beyond beyond is of eternal silence. This eternal silence never breaks. God in the beyond beyond state is eternally silent. In the beyond state of God, there is eternal silence and there is eternal sound. The eternal sound, sorry, the eternal silence was broken when creation began. I'll read the whole paragraph again. In the beyond state of God, there is eternal silence and there is eternal sound. The eternal silence was broken when creation began. It was broken when that original thought, who am I, came into existence in the form of the original word which gave the answer to that original thought. The answer was God's conscious state achieved in the beyond. I am God. I alone exist. Creation is the original breaking of God's eternal silence, which gave birth to infinite sounds. These infinite sounds end in an infinite sound, which merges with eternal silence and becomes an infinite soundless sound, the sound of eternal silence. So, in other words, in the beyond state, the journey is from eternal silence to through eternal sound back to eternal silence. Right? In the process, Nirvan, Nirvikalp, the question is answered with the question of who am I is answered with the answer I am God, I alone exist. Right?
But
Let's
Jay Baba,
continue. Yeah.
if what we read is that the eternal silence uh, exists only in the beyond state of God. If you read the
Uh,
the previous
uh,
paragraph,
yes, that's
short
only
verse,
silence. Yeah, that's only silence.
yeah, only
There's
silence.
no
So,
eternal sound. Yeah.
if I put it mathematically, forgive me for being mathematical. So, in the beyond state of God, there is only eternal silence, and in the beyond state of God, there is eternal silence and plus eternal sound. Is that
Yeah.
uh,
Yes,
we
yes, correct. Perfect.
put it in equation form?
No, Jai Baba, I think eternal silence is in nirvana, and eternal thought or the nirvikalpa samadhi is Satchitananda, which is universal mind. So that's what I read. That's what I heard in the previous chapters.
Yes,
No, that's correct. That's correct. But what his question is, he's just restating what's there in the first paragraph. The beyond. So again, the context, super contextual, Ashokji. The
Yeah, yeah,
beyond is eternal silence alone, and that you can relate to what we know of the beyond state till now, which is there is neither consciousness nor there is no consciousness. Okay,
correct.
so imagine that to be the state of eternal silence. Then you flip to beyond. I mean, you flip to beyond, which is coinciding with the question, right? The question arises, and then that's breakage of silence. What is the breakage of silence resulting in? Eternal sound, because there is infinite sound possibilities in the three words. What does it end up in? Finally, in eternal silence.
Yes. Okay.
Jai Baba, I have a comment here.
So,
Remember in the supplement to the God speaks, state one of God, beyond state of God, or the most original state of God, and state two of God, Paramatma, which is the beyond state of God, are basically one. Only when the
yes.
who am I comes and goes to the three substates, because remember that starting from the who am I is all part of the grand illusion, consciousness, infinite unconsciousness, so on and so forth. So, as you rightly said, based on context, technically, state one of God, state two of God are alike. One is without aspect, aspectless, and the other one with aspect. But they are one and the same. Only after the whim starts and the three substates of God, happens, then you have all these other stuff.
Correct.
Hey, Baba.
So if you look at it, if we just paraphrase or try to superimpose what we understood there on this chart, in the semicircle which represents state one, there is only eternal silence. After that, in A, B, and C, there is both silence and sound at the same time. But let's remember, in Nirvana, there is infinite silence. And then in Nirvikalpa, you get the soundless sound of or the infinite sound. Right? So that's what, at least I'm just trying to repeat what we have just learned or what we have just read. Okay. Let's
Interesting
Exactly.
phrase that we can add here is with that chart is that
Mhm.
soundless
Sorry.
sound and
Yeah.
what is the other word? Uh,
Infinite silence and soundless sound. Soundless sound is Nevikalpa, whereas infinite silence is in Nirvana. Let me go back and confirm.
yes.
That's the previous chapter. So when the human mind is totally free, it will hear the infinite silence. We'll mark it out so that it's easier the next time. That happens in Nirvana. And state of Nirvikalp is the infinite thought. But here it doesn't mention soundless. That's above. Let's go back and check. So there was a clearer, yeah, Nirvana is a sound. There we go. Okay. Uh, so this is one more reference to that. Yeah. Sound becomes soundless in the state of Nirvana, and silence is achieved in the state of Nirvikalpa. That this infinite thought of God's thought is I am God is in the state of Nirvikalpa, which is silence. The silence is achieved because the infinite mind thinks the infinite thought. So Nirvan is soundless and silence is Nirvikalpa. Now I'll take you back to the chart. Mawad, you were saying something.
Yes, I am getting confused. Okay, go ahead. Let it
Yeah,
crystallize.
I think we are all confused between the word soundless and silence. So thanks to you, we discovered that we are
No,
confused.
silence is absolute nil, nothing. Okay, soundless sound is the
Infinite.
in the process of the whole the spiritual growth process. This sound gradually becomes soundless, but in the nirvikalpa, the silence is achieved in the state of nirvikalpa. So before that, nirvana is the becomes soundless in the state of nirvana. So that means this agitation or the speaking, creating vibration stops in nirvana. So this agitation or this thing creates a sound. So it is a sort of a vibration creating disturbance that stops in nirvana, and silence is achieved in the state of nirvikalpa, means unitary thought remains. There is no other uh, vikalpa there. Vikalpa is agitation.
Choice or
So
correct or
nirvikalpa
difference.
means there is no agitation. You are at a particular state where you are realizing God as yourself. So that is how I look at it. That's why it is soundless sound. All these words are used. So Bhau has used the uh, sound to give us a different dimension for the spiritual growth and attainment of nirvana and nirvikalpa. That's how I look at it as a summary. Because at each stage it becomes a bit of a difficulty to when we take one concept as, say, our uh, say AB can put it as mathematical equation, we will have to answer at every stage whether it tallies here, there, and other things. But it's
Correct.
sort of in a summary, it is a journey of soundless sound to soundless sound.
Yeah,
Yes.
that part is clear. I'm still a bit gray about uh, the difference between Nirvan and Nirvikalpa and the state of sound in that those two states. Because I think in the previous chapter,
See, Jai
when thinking,
Baba,
hold
what
on, I found something. Hold on, let's just try this. When thinking stops in the state of Nirvan, when the limited mind is annihilated, the original word is heard as the answer to the original infinite thought. The state of infinite thought, which creates the process of infinite thinking, has no sound and it can never be heard even on the fifth mental plane. Do, da, 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 da. No, this is the first reference to Nirvana, I'm sure. Yeah, go ahead, Kama.
Mr. Jai
Sorry.
Baba, the way I look at it is simply put, Nirvan, as you know, is the God is not state. Consciousness is, which is basically super consciousness, but it is almost equal to, in sound sleep state, it's basically, what do you call silence, right? I mean, or what is that word that was used? Soundless sound or whatever
Let's.
that, yes.
Yeah.
So when we are in sound sleep state as an ordinary human being, we don't hear anything. It's a form of, how do you differentiate between soundless and silence? Okay, it's a little bit of an ambiguity. We have to be careful how we describe or define that. So the only way you can try to interpret it is to use our own experience in life, the sleep state and the awake state. So in the awake state, you can either be in the nirvana or nirvikalpa, let's say. Okay. So let's say you're on the seventh plane. The seventh plane, you start off with nirvana, which is only the divine absolute vacuum state. But you don't experience I am God. So that is a form of, again, no mind state. Nirvana and nirvikalpa samadhi, there is no mind because sanskaras have become zero. But interesting thing is, you don't have a universal mind in the nirvana state because it is almost like you're asleep. And
Correct.
whereas nirvikalpa samadhi, you are I am God state, which is infinite power, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, where you have universal mind, but that universal mind is not having ordinary thoughts, right? There is no, there are no thoughts, there are no sanskaras, but it does have a what is called the real ego, which is the universal mind, the universal energy, and so on. So that is kind of interpreted as, because it's still silent. The idea is, if nirvikalpa samadhi is soundless sound or whatever the term is used, the mind is not agitated, as doctor said, nirvikalpa, like an ordinary mind.
Hmm.
So, in summary, I'm looking at it like ordinary man's, when he goes to sound sleep state, there is soundless, no sound. Whereas when you're awake and you are in nirvana or nirvikalpa samadhi, you are conscious, but you don't have a ordinary mind. There is no mind. There's only the universal mind, which is again is a form of silence, but you're conscious. You know?
Yes.
Jai Baba.
Yeah. Okay. I think I'm still grappling with it, but we'll get to that. I broadly get it, but not fully get it. But that's me. So let's continue. Um, Silences, guys.
That is the grappling of Buddhism and Advaita also.
Something like that. Yes, exactly. Nirvana versus Advaita. Yeah,
Karthik,
Nirvana is, yeah.
take take you know,
Chill pill.
even I'm intrigued and I'm confused.
Yeah. Take a chill pill. It doesn't matter. Never mind. Doesn't matter.
Rather than trying to interpret the words soundless silence and all that, let's try to simplify it into what we have understood from God speaks. What is nirvana?
Correct.
Which is basically the consciousness is God is not, which is the only state where God is not present. Okay,
Yes,
meaning the God is present. God is basically God is infinitude, infinite knowledge, infinite power, infinite bliss. Whereas Nirvikalpa Samadhi is God is state. So Nirvana is God is not, because you're totally in that soundless silence or whatever you may call it. Whereas Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the God is state, and then you can interpret whatever that sound is, universal mind, which is soundless and whatever. Jai Baba.
Yeah, yeah. Let's not
yes,
let's not dilute our understanding till now. And thanks for bringing that back. And these are, let's understand again the context of the book we are reading. The context of the book we are reading is Bhau's commentary and embellishment on the manifestation of the avatar. So he's extending the ideas that are presented in Lord Speaks and in Beams. So we have to always zoom out, zoom in as required. So if you zoom out, that's what we're trying to do here. So don't worry beyond a point and don't dilute what we have already understood. Thanks for that, Kalma.
yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue. Silence is God's eternal state. Infinite sounds bring about the state of creation. Infinite soundless sound is the state of conscious God. The apparent silence of the avatar, which Meher Baba maintained, was for the sake of his universal work. When the result of that work is manifesting, his silence is broken. The avatar's silence contains the sound of the universe within his universal being to harmonize all sounds into one sound. At the time of his total manifestation, the harmony of all sounds into one will signal the breaking of his silence. Because that one harmony, the sound of his word, will have become apparent. The avatar completes his work before he drops his body. The completion of his work signifies that all sounds have been harmonized into one, and when that one sound manifests as his word, it is the breaking of his silence. Meher Baba has been breaking his apparent silence gradually since he dropped the body, and as a result of this, different people from all over the world are coming into his contact. This signifies that the different sounds of those beings are being harmonized in him, in his one sound, his word. When this harmony becomes apparent to these human beings, they recognize that he is breaking his silence by harmonizing all sounds in his word. The ultimate meaning of the speaking of his word is the turning of separative human consciousness toward universal oneness and harmony. Hmm, beautiful. Toward again, but I feel a lot comfortable thanks to Bhushan.
Last sentence we can underline.
Yeah. No, no, but there was a toward, but I
Yes,
feel
yes,
a
yes.
lot more, I, I feel less uncomfortable thanks to Bhushan. Okay,
Jai
good.
Baba,
Great.
I think the whole the summary of this is that is silence. The word is inner silence. And let's not get into the semantics of it. So it is
Good, good.
like, is it possible to be silent like we did in July 10th, Silence Day? Jai Baba.
Yeah.
So is this
Yeah.
inner silence. New idea from Kama.
Yeah.
Explanation for God is inner silence.
Correct. So, uh, how do I do that? It's on WhatsApp. 1 second, let me just pull it up. On it. I'm just getting it to you guys.
What happened? Okay.
Okay, so
Karthik, you're maintaining
okay.
silence.
No, no, no. So here's the text. So yeah, so if you see on the right, this is from ChatGPT. So one of the questions is, why did Baba maintain silence? So the question sent to AI and the answer received. Again, word of caution. This is as per AI. So this is not Baba. This is not anybody linked to that. Right. So this is AI's interpretation. So I'll just read the headings and only one connected to me very deeply. And let's see what you guys have to say. First one is Baba maintained silence to make sure that everybody learns to listen beyond words. Very good point. Learning to listen beyond words. Okay. Second, obedience without always understanding. Okay. Baba's silence placed unusual demands on the Mandali. Instructions conveyed rapidly through gestures had to be understood and followed precisely, even without explanation. So it always ensured or guided people to be obedient without always understanding. Right? If Baba was speaking, you would have gone and asked him 15 questions more often. In spite of which, there are people who have asked, right? And people have got it back and said, don't ask, go do. Right? So overall, that's also a good point. Obedience without always understanding. Number three, experiencing presence rather than depending upon teachings. Okay? This is again very beautiful. It says that experience the presence of Baba rather than just read or uh, uh, depend upon teachings. You depend upon Quran, depend upon Bible, you depend upon books, or you experience Baba's presence. Okay. Number four, participate in Baba's universal work. Baba did not present his silence simply as a personal austerity or vow. For those who accepted him as the avatar, it was connected with his original universal spiritual work. And he was doing that work through that. That's the point. Okay. Number five, test of love and faith, which I think it was. Because he also used the breaking of the silence as a test of love and faith. How? Many times he said he will break his silence and didn't. So it was a test of faith. Okay, a filter. Number six, just to create silence day as a remembrance, this is weak AI hallucination. Ignore that. So I just wanted to present these five. And for me, one connected more than the others. And that was experiencing presence rather than depending upon teachings. And that's a distinction compared to the other adverts. The other adverts lay their focus, or at least the religions that formed after those advents, lay their focus on the written word. Whereas Baba, if you go back to all our collective experiences, individual experiences of those even on this call, it's always through experience. Then we go to the word and then we go to his teachings. But what connects us to him is first through experience. So I thought AI did something smart for a change, right? So I
Jay
think I've
Baba.
shared, yeah,
Yeah.
I've shared this also in the discussion group on Silence Day. And I think I've shared it privately also with a few of you. Those of you who want to read and explore this in detail can do so. Yeah, Kama.
Jay Baba, I think it's beautiful what you summarized because one is the presence part, which I love,
Yeah.
Of course, because I'm a music fan, there is a Led Zeppelin album called Presence, okay, which many people
Okay.
are not aware of. Everybody knows about Stairway to Heaven, but there is an album called Presence. It's a very hard,
Okay.
but you can listen to some of the lyrics, okay. But so on another note, I think the other one that I liked was obedience without trying to understand everything, which is beautiful because it's again comes
Beautiful.
down to Hafiz's first saying, don't ask why or what. And third is Baba has also said in discourses and other places that whatever knowledge you have about spirituality, even if it's limited, just keep working at it. You don't have to understand perfectly God speaks or discourses, whatever, try your best
Hmm.
to fulfill whatever you have intuitively understood in terms of the spiritual messages and all that. And the last one is, which talks about experience. As you said, experience is better than just the word, because the word
Hmm.
becomes more powerful after you have the actual experience.
Experience.
See, in Iyengar yoga, there is a beautiful definition of yoga which says right action without right knowledge and right knowledge without right action is meaningless. So that kind of summarizes, the action
Wow.
of thoughts, words, and deeds, which Baba said. Somebody asked, like, how do we behave? Like, how do we do right action? And he gave a simple answer. If I'm in front of you, what do? You
What will you
think
do?
thoughts or say things or do things in my presence. What would you do in my presence? Do the same thing with everybody in every situation. What a brilliant way of, without having to go through the mechanics of
Defining.
which again comes down to good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. That's it. You know, Jay Baba.
Brilliant. Any others? Any other thoughts from the others? And by the way, the presence, as I was thinking more and more of it since Silence Day, presence idea and linking it to silence also is strongly supported by the fact that Baba focuses on intuition, right, which is the gift for humanity. So again, that's linked to presence, right? So where the word becomes less important, his words, his presence, not thoughts, his not his ideas, just his presence. I mean, maybe there's a better word. AI came up with presence, and I think all of us understood what that it means, what it is trying to convey. But that seems to be the biggest reason why Baba maintained silence. So I'm sure a lot of us got this question in our mind at various points, and thanks, Sunilji is not on the call, but he's the one who went and explored this with AI. And for me, that Okay.
Jay
So,
Baba,
Yes,
one
that
one more
also.
thought. Sorry, Jay Baba. Sorry,
yeah,
one more thought. When you said
sure.
His presence,
Mhm.
it immediately what came to me was the capital Self. That the Self is everywhere.
Yes,
Meaning
Mhm.
Boyle's Baba, our innermost loving self, where he said, I am closer to you than your own breath. First of all,
Breath.
we are not conscious of our breathing. Okay? And the breathing is what keeps the body going. And the body is there for the consciousness. Body is the medium, the material body, gross body, subtle body, mental body, is the medium for the individual drop soul consciousness to liberate itself, which is liberate
Mm.
itself means to find its own real I self, which is the God is, right? Baba clearly said that you and I are not we but one. I am God conscious, you are in the process, basically. So, in a way, the presence is, as you rightly said, I think it's a beautiful word that we have discovered that God is presence. That is the, so you can call it divine love or
Is.
the seven
Yeah.
realities we know, like, the seven aspects of God, real existence, real love, truth, infinity, being, awareness, and so on and so forth, Jay Baba.
Jai Baba. I mean, its closest word is God is or existence to understand presence. But I like the word, like you said, presence is nice. Mamaji, you were saying something.
yes, yes. That also brings to the title of this book, manifesting. That word is also uh, so. It is avatar is manifesting, and we have to become aware of that.
Yes,
That is the only process.
absolutely. So I think we will, um, word is to be heard. Okay, it's 2 pages. So let's try to pick this up. The word is to be heard. God in the beyond was, is, and forever will be of infinite silence. The acronym that Kama just used, God in the beyond was, is, and forever will be of infinite silence, IS. This infinite silence is described as God is, and in his and in this infinite silence, nothing else is. The infinite silence contains only one original word. But before the beginning of creation, God in the beyond space was not conscious of this word. It can only be said that God has a will to think, to speak. He thought, he spoke, and his infinite silence was broken. The word Om came out in its original form of a question: who am I? And it was instantaneously answered by the spontaneous evolution and involution of creation, ending in I am God. I paused here. How is it instantaneous is what is running in my head, but let's keep going and explore what is said. The, the big everything is everything, and the big nothing is the shadow of big everything, is also in everything. There is the infinite real sound of the word in the big everything, and the big nothing, being the opposite of big everything, has the infinite false sound of the word. In the beginning, when God broke his silence and gave the word in the form of the question, who am I? The big nothing undertook to answer the question. The big nothing spontaneously started creating flesh forms as answers. In this way, creation came into existence in the domain of the big nothing. The word came first in the form of a thought, a question by God, breaking his own silence, but flesh forms followed to give tentative answers to this question. But as the nothing, big nothing, is false, the answers received by the big everything from the big nothing were and are false forever. Creation is the establishment of the mental, subtle, and gross worlds in the domain of the big nothing. I repeat, creation is the establishment of the mental, subtle, and gross worlds in the domain of the big nothing. In the creating of creation, innumerable finite nothings came out of the infinite big nothing to give countless false answers to the real question, who am I? I'm tempted to just quickly show you this diagram because that's exactly what it is. Many temporary false nothings, right? AKA false nothing, temporary nothings are created. We go back. In the gross universe, 7 stages of evolution were created by the false nothings, and the nothings went on and go on providing sanskaras to maintain the 3 worlds. Unconscious God found that he had to pass through all the stages of evolution and involution to attain the final real answer to his real question. When unconscious God crosses beyond the mental sphere to reach the original state of the big nothing, he experiences the complete vacuum. I repeat, when unconscious God, that is in God in the states in creation, crosses beyond the mental sphere to reach the original state of the big nothing. So he reaches the state of nirvana. He experiences he experiences the complete vacuum nirvana. In this vacuum of nirvana, infinite false sound is absorbed. But in the next instant, infinite real sound of that word is heard in Nirvikalpa. Nirvikalpa Samadhi is the I am God state. And this state of infinitely conscious God is the real form of the ultimate answer to the original question. Before the beginning of creation, the silence of God is broken in the form of the question, who am I? And so the real answer to this real question of the world remained to be heard. The first one who heard the real answer to this original question is known as the Ancient One. This soul has been descending into creation since the beginning, age after age, to help human consciousness turn away from the domain of the big nothing to the infinitude of the big everything. He is called the Ancient One because he has been in creation since the beginning. And pausing, I hope everybody is with me. Till now, it's the same idea being repeated with clarity and simplicity. So actually, I think it's good till now. Please stop me if you want anything to be discussed. I continue. In this cycle of time, he appeared in the form of Meher Baba and he observed silence when he decided upon his mission to the world. Meher Baba declared he would break his silence, but people asked, how will he break his silence when he is no longer in the body? Some believe he will appear in the body again to break his silence. But in actuality, his silence was broken by him in the very beginning, and as a result of this, creation came into existence. Creation continues to exist so that other souls can find the real answer to the question of that word, as the Ancient One did. For one should think that Meher Baba did not break his silence, or that he dropped his body without fulfilling his promise. Such thinking is absurd. Meher Baba's silence has nothing to do with his physical body. When he broke his infinite silence before the beginning of creation, did he have a physical body at that time? Meher Baba's silence is connected with his universal work. And though he has dropped his physical body, his work goes on manifesting with the sound from his silence. This means he is breaking his silence. And if one longs to hear the sound of the word of his silence, he will hear it. But if one is attached to hearing the false sound, the noise, how is it possible for him to hear the real sound? When one has forgotten the original question, how is it possible to find the real answer? Individual human mind has to forget everything that resounds out of the big nothing. Only then can a man remember the original question and hear the real answer. One has to hear that word.
Jay
It
Baba,
is the
Jay Baba, Jay
yeah, yeah,
Baba.
come on, go ahead. Yeah,
Sorry to break that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Beautiful. I think this chapter and the previous one are so important.
Very
But
good. Yeah,
what I wanted to mention was the ancient one, which is the avatar. The question I had was one is that Baba has said in the supplement that we know creation there is Mahapralaya, and Baba has said that there have been billions of universes, millions of avatars come and gone. So my curious mind was just asking that every time creation after Mahapralaya, again creation happens. Does it mean again this whole existence, so-called existence, has to start off with an avatar? You know, that is number one. And the other thing that I wanted to mention about the avatar is, I think the question, it starts off with the most original whim, which is a question: Who am I? And then the answer is also given instantaneously. You read earlier that we know from God
correct,
speaks
correct.
that when the whim happens, infinite consciousness immediately knows I am God, right?
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
other hand, you have infinite unconsciousness. So there is a paradox out there in a way, which the limited
Correct.
human mind can't understand. Number one. So the beauty is, it's not about the answer, who am I? It is actually asking the most original question, who am I? And the answer is already latent in it. I am, that is God is. So, which means that the most important thing in life is, like they say, to ask the right question, number one. And we know from a spiritual point of view, there is only one real question, which is, who am I? And that answer is also built in. But we have to experience all those states to reach that answer, which we know theoretically, I am God, Aham Brahmasmi. Hey, Baba.
Absolutely. So, to answer your question, first question on the timing and scope of Avatar, my understanding is the ancient one is across Mahapralyas. I don't know if I'm right or wrong. On your second, yes, all the rest of what you said is perfect. Anybody else wants to comment or respond to Kama?
Karma is extrapolating and synthesizing with manifestation book with all other Baba literature. That's a nice way of looking at it. That's what I think.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So, in fact, at various points during this book, though it was initially suggested by Kama himself that we pick this up, I was actually curious to see his reactions to some sections of this book that we read till now. So, looking forward to having you continuously in future sessions so that we are able to see uh, the cross references and also the ideas being better understood, better explained here. And then, even if some things are not understood, we have a good discussion come. Anyway, the last paragraph before we wrap up for today. One has to hear that word. It is the purpose of all life, and we are destined to fulfill this purpose because of the ancient one's eternal help. We must long to hear his word instead of thinking, when will Meher Baba break his silence? He is breaking it, and if one does not hear it, he has not prepared himself to hear it.
Yeah.
I think perfect, perfect
Yeah.
way. If somebody asks us what about Baba's silence, I think this chapter and the previous chapters are good references. Of course, it should be four chapters read together. Then somebody will be able to understand and make sense of it. Anyway, very, very interesting and insightful session. I hope it was true for all of you as well. Um, any closing remarks before we can wrap up?
As I have the artificial hearing aid, so we need
Mhm.
to have proper hearing aid to hear Baba's word, which is coming from
Correct.
silence.
We are not equipped to hear his word, but he's there breaking his silence, and that's a continuous process. Yes. Okay,
Actually, Jai
let's get.
Baba, I think that the answer is already available. It's like love is in the air. The air we breathe, oxygen is there, but we are not conscious of it. So the analogy for me is that God's presence. I think today for me the takeaway was the word presence, and then so many other beautiful insights about obedience without understanding. Which is beautiful. Makes it so easy. It's
Yes.
like the child. You tell the child, just follow the bloody rule. Don't try to understand now. You will come when your time will come. So
Correct.
you know
Correct. Correct.
when the kid starts asking too many questions, you say like your time hasn't come. Relax. Just enjoy life. Like play the game. Like don't ask who am I now.
Correct.
Like your time will come. But the beauty here is that I think that is why it kind of summarizes when Baba says nothing has happened. Okay. This is all in the divine dream of God. And I think all of us who have been very fortunate, have the grace of Baba and able to come under his umbrella, do experience his presence consciously or unconsciously at different moments. So for us, since we have accepted Baba as the ancient one, we are in his presence, but we are not available to it all the time. Jai Baba.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay, Jai Baba. So may all of us feel more of his presence in the coming week, and let's join back next Saturday to pick up with Bal Natu on understanding his presence. On that Baba present full note, I will wrap up this session this morning. Have a great Sunday.
Yes,
Jai
Jai
Baba.
Baba, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.